This music sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Everybody is talking about the contrast that's going on here. We got these cheerful, warm, bright songs, sonically, orally, and some serious subject matter.
Yeah.
What does that give you musically to play with that contrast?
Well, I think, when I look at a lot of life experiences, never just black or white. It's a big, bright spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's kind of what I was looking at in terms of writing kind of personal songs. And as I have been able to get away with making my fourth record, I'm more and more interested in how I can kind of make something more complex, even musically, and how I can play in the studio and how I can kind of reflect those things. It's an old trick, of course, like that happy song that you don't realize is actually a sad song. But more and more, it's the kind of thing that interests me.
I was wondering on a personal level if that gives you a sort of distance when you're performing, or even approaching those feelings in the writing process, if that sort of helped you on a personal level, kind of bringing these songs to life. Writing
these songs definitely helped me. Singing them is still very new, so I guess that will take some time to tell. And I think in my previous experience with especially singing some of my first songs, sometimes you can inhabit that space where you were, and then sometimes you can find a new meaning for things. So that's kind of the fun part about writing pop songs too, is that you kind of leave them open enough that you can kind of twist them in the light and find something new in them each time.
Is that part of the art of it, is to leave some space?
I hope so.
Yeah. You've talked about pop music being a good vehicle for big emotions and big feelings. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think that especially with kind of heartbreak type songs, I think it's something that everybody's experienced and everybody understands. So what was interesting to me was maybe to kind of open it up and make it seem a little bit bigger in that sense, so that people could kind of find their own story in it, and maybe not alienate people necessarily. I mean, I'm in the habit of writing pretty personal songs that they all kind of come from a personal place.
That's how it's always been for you.
Yeah, I think so. So it's one of those things that I think over time I've been interested in looking at, well, what is it? It's not necessarily the specifics that are interesting to me, but really how universal the experiences really are.
Well, in terms of specifics, right in the first line of the press materials, it says this is a breakup album. Tell me about the decision to put that out there. Was that hard for you?
I think it's one of those things that it was gonna. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious when I'm writing very personal songs. How people like to spin it is not necessarily under my control.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's the thing. I think everything that I can say, or it's very hard for me to talk about personal things. So the way I find easiest is in music, and the things that kind of, it almost feels more true in a song than it would to talk about it. So,
but putting information like that out there, is that like a change for you? Like, do you feel at a point in your life and in your career where you're like, I'm okay with just saying that this is a breakup album?
Well, I think it's pretty important to be honest, at least where I'm coming from, and also I think allowing yourself to be vulnerable is something that is kind of what allows for people to disarm themselves a little bit when they're approaching things, whether it's art or, whether it's music or film or anything. I think it's important to allow yourself to not have your guard up all the time.
So you put yourself out there first, and then your listeners can go, okay, cool, I can come around this. She's kind of opening the door.
Yeah. At least that's the hope.
Okay. You haven't made a record quite like this before in terms of pop record, I guess you could say. Why now?
Well, that is an interesting question, and it's kind of hard to it's something that's kind of hard to answer because the songs wrote themselves that way. It wasn't something that I was seeking out intentionally, like, okay, this is going to be the thing. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think that you kind of got to listen, and that's something that I think that's really what the record is about in a way, is about listening to your intuition maybe, and the kind of a battle between reason and emotion. So when it comes to the way the songs sound, you kind of had to listen to what they were trying to do.
Who are your favorites as far as writing pop songs that battle with reason and emotion and the things you're trying to do on this record? Who are you a fan of?
Oh, man. I think a lot of people. I think those are the best pop songs, really. Yeah. I think there's an amazing amount of Motown that kind of...
Tears of a Clown comes to mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Maybe Stevie Wonder is really one of the greatest in that way, too.
He's the only musician that I think is maybe not a human.
He's magical.
He is a magical creature. So what I'm kind of seeing and hearing here is like a musical evolution, also on a personal level, a lot of changes.
Yeah.
How do these two things fit together for you? Does one kind of affect the other?
I think it's pretty natural. I think no matter what, as a person, you're always evolving, you're always growing and changing, or that's the hope that you have for yourself. So it's still so early days for me to really be able to like assess exactly in what way did this or that affect anything, and maybe there's no way to be able to say that objectively. But I think no matter what, I'm always kind of looking at going towards something that gives me trepidation or gives me pause and wondering why. And exploring if I feel like something is not necessarily in my wheelhouse or in the comfort zone, then exploring that and going there, maybe more insistently than I would.
Over the course of your career, has music helped you do that more in your personal life? I mean,
yeah, music helps me do everything. Music helps me live and breathe, and yeah.
So it's made you a more brave person, you think?
I think so, yeah. Like, not just, I don't even just mean my own, I mean other people's music, and just a lot of times, I'm not really listening to my own music a lot. Certainly playing music, but listening to other people's records and singing my heart out to other songs, it helps me all the time.
So this was recorded in Louisville, Kentucky, long way from Montreal. Was that a difficult thing to do?
It was really fun. It was a really amazing experience, and I really wanted to kind of get away and go somewhere I'd never really been before. And yeah, talk about magic. Louisville is a very magical place. It's a town that encourages the weird and the wonderful, and people are extremely welcoming and very friendly, and I felt immediately part of a musical community almost immediately. So yeah, there was a bit of a super group down there as well of great musicians and a lot of bands who took part on this record.
That's great to hear, because not all those leaps work out so well. Those big chances. So that's awesome to hear.
That's true. I mean, and I think it's important to. I think it's important, that in a way it's also good. It's also a good thing if things don't work out. But this time it did. But I do think it's important to take a chance, and then if it fails, that's okay. You just do something else. That's kind of the beauty of art. Of it. Yeah, the crash landings you can walk away from, so to speak.
That's true, because at the end of the day, with art, it's not truly life or death.
Yeah. And also, and it's one of those things that you don't know at the time. I mean, what's to say a success or failure in your work? There's no way to know, especially right in the moment. You could, 100 years from now, something that, people think is, even, whether it's in pop culture, something that maybe nobody's heard of will become, the greatest record of all time.
Well, hopefully it won't take that long for this record.